Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. I'm so glad you could join us again today. Today we are joined with our guest is Nancy Juetten, and she is a publicist. And I first met her as a friend of a friend of a friend type thing. And my first reaction is, you've been holding out on me. How come I didn't know about Nancy years ago? I could really have used her help over the years. Anyhow, welcome, Nancy, to our program today.
Thanks, Diane. I'm so glad that the friend of a friend of a friend brought us together. I'm looking forward to bringing the value.
And that friend of a friend of a friend ended up being your husband.
So good.
Holding out on me. Well, Nancy, as we were talking offline before going live, most home service business owners, your plumbers, your electricians, your roofers, your HVAC guys, they're not even thinking about being a podcast guest or having their own podcast or writing a book or writing blog articles or getting out in front and being interviewed in some way, shape, or form. They're not really thinking about that. They're taking care of their customers, they're putting out fires, they're building with their team. But this whole other area is something that is new and maybe a little bit of a foreign concept to them. I know it was to me as an accountant when I first entered this arena, is why would I need to do any of that stuff? I had enough clients. I was busy. Why would I need to do any of this stuff? And so I'm hoping you can shed some light on that for our guests today and helping them understand why this is important in today's technology era that we live in.
Well, that's a really good question. And I think I've got a couple of thoughts that might be worth pondering.
Okay.
One big idea is a lot of organizations that do home service stuff have people that are smiling and dialing and doing cold calling for them. Maybe they're trying to cold call when they're just starting out their practice or their business. And the thing is, a lot of people don't like cold calling. They don't like dealing with people that hang up the phone, that are discourteous to them, that don't want to talk to them about whatever it is that they're selling. And the neat thing about being featured on a podcast or being showcased in a newspaper or magazine or any kind of publicity is that it builds credibility for your organization, and it has you speaking to people that are interested in what you're talking about just by definition. You know, if my husband, for example, is a business exit strategist and you help people address that particular issue, you're interested in that. So it was useful for him to be a guest on your show because people are listening who are interested in possibly selling their businesses one day. So if you are a plumber that has 10 reasons, 10 checks that you need to make sure you're dealing with an ethical, licensed contractor who knows what they're doing to solve your problem, you're establishing why you are someone to be trusted so that people can feel comfortable having you into their homes. It's just a simple idea there. You know, credibility is valuable. And who wouldn't want to be in a conversation with a host to say, well, what are the 10 questions I should be asking before I let a licensed or non-licensed contractor into my house? If you're the source of those questions, that demonstrates that you care about doing the right thing. And I think trust in this marketplace is very high premium, and it may help set you apart from other people who don't do it.
Well, and I think we know the old adage of people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Mm-hmm.
And by putting this information out there ahead of time, having a presence in your, whether it's your local area or a little bit bigger area, having that presence, and they can see that this company stands out over all their competitors, I think it brings that trust factor up a little bit faster. And now they're willing to have that conversation that when your cold call person called them, they didn't want the conversation. But now they're willing to have that conversation with you or your sales team or somebody.
Yes. And, you know, a lot of the local magazines in our various geographic areas do like the best of Western Washington, the best of Pennsylvania, the best of whatever, and they have different categories. The best home services company in your hometown. If you're lucky enough to be nominated for one of these awards and you have a way to reach out to your customers by email and say, we'd so appreciate your vote to encourage people to realize what a great service provider we are, and you ultimately win, what happens is you get invited usually to some fancy lunch or dinner where all the other winners are assembled, and you get recognized and you break bread and talk shop with people around these nice dinner tables. And all of a sudden people are volunteering, I've been meaning to remodel my bathroom. Maybe you're the person I've been looking for. Or, we're having trouble with our roof. I'm wondering if you might be the guy that can help me. And all of a sudden those referrals get ignited, and you end up talking to more and more people who are ready to buy, less people that are kicking the tires. And, if you have people that are ready to buy, not kicking the tires, you have a lot more to celebrate in the balance sheet because you've got more customers. So it's also really validating for people who win awards, especially if they've got spouses at home that are sacrificing while they're running 24/7 emergency calls for people who need their help, because they're thinking, gee, I married this person and he's always gone on call, and what's in it for me? But when you win an award as the best in your town for being brilliant in this area, your family and your partners can really be proud of you and see, well, it was worth the sacrifice, because now that you've achieved this level of recognition, everything's going to be so much easier for us now. And that's why JD Power is such a great thing. When JD Power says this is the best whatever it is, somehow people say, well, maybe I better give that one a closer look. So I think recognition is valuable on intangible and tangible levels. And I think it's something to consider, especially for those who may be a little reluctant to toot their own horn without it.
I think a lot of times it's hard to toot your own horn, especially if you're not a vivacious extrovert. They have no trouble tooting their own horns, but the rest of us are not good at that. And so we need somebody else to say, wow, go look at whatever it might be. I know for myself, right behind my head is a book that says Stop Overpaying Your Taxes. That was the very first book I wrote, probably coming up on 10, 12 years ago now. And what a scary venture to write my first book. Now, I had done some group books prior to that, put my toe in the water, but to actually write my own book by myself and self-publish it was a scary thing. But I gave so many copies of that book away. We sold a few, but I gave more copies away than I ever sold. And I keep it on the shelf back there, even though it's outdated and the tax law has changed. I keep it on my shelf as that reminder of this was my very first real book that I published myself. And it brought me a lot of credibility, not so much publicity, because I didn't know how to publicize it back then. I know a lot more today than I did then, but it brought a lot of credibility simply because I was able to put a book in somebody's hands. I'm going to share a quick story with you. We had bought a vacant lot here in town next door to my business office at the time, which we since have sold and bought a different one. But when we bought that vacant lot, there was a builder in the local area who sent me this book that he had written, beautiful full color book, hardcover, beautiful book. And in it was all these things about why you want a custom builder, and on it went. Now, he thought he didn't do enough homework. He thought we would be building a house. Well, this is a commercial lot, so it didn't quite, fit the message. But the fact that he sent that book, he is the trigger for why I'm an author today. Because I thought, if a contractor can do that, why can't an accountant? If a contractor went to the work of creating this beautiful book and sending it out because he's watching the Secretary of State site or wherever he was watching and saw that I purchased that lot, if a contractor can do that, shouldn't an accountant be doing something like that too? And
well, let me try to share a
Yeah.
way that this could have been even cooler, because this contractor was reaching out to you personally, which is always a great thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But way back in the day, when the Great Recession happened in 2008, all bets were off. How was anybody going to roll up their sleeves and make a living during what was a very, very difficult time? And there was some local author in Bellevue, Washington, that wrote a book about how to qualify for a mortgage even during this particularly dire time. And the Bellevue Reporter did a local story about this local author and how she was helping people get mortgages at a time when nobody thought they could. Well, every single person who lives in that zip code got that newspaper delivered to their front porch. And all of a sudden, this author was selling a lot of books and writing a lot of mortgages. And so I decided to make it personal. And so I noticed the name of the reporter who wrote the story about this particular author. And I looked in the newspaper archives and I found out that she loves to write about local authors. And as it happened, I had just written a book called Bye Bye Boring Bio that was to help people attract clients during a very dire time. And so I wrote to her and said, I noticed that you have a pattern of showcasing local authors who have important solutions to offer to the residents of our fair city. I really enjoyed the story you did about this and that and the other. And oh, by the way, I'm an author too. And my new book just debuted. And the problem that this solves is A, B, and C. I really believe that we can all get seen, heard, and celebrated in our own backyard and beyond. Would you like to meet me in my backyard to have a conversation about how this book can help my local neighbors?
Wow.
The next day, the person says, yes, I'd love to come with a photographer to your backyard on your patio and have this conversation. And so they interviewed me about my Bye Bye Boring Bio book. And then a couple days later, I'm sitting in the stands at the local swim meet where everyone in the neighborhood is cheering for their little kids swimming in the pool. And they have the newspaper in their hand and they're looking at the picture of me in the newspaper and the picture of me in the stands. And they're saying, hey, this is you. And what was really cool about it is all of a sudden, people came rushing to buy the book from my website. And so instead of, I'm just building up what possibilities can emerge, because your contractor, this guy saw that you had a vacant lot and he made sure that you had the book. So there was one transaction that was possible. But if he had written a book and told his local newspaper about it, what if the whole neighborhood knew about it and were reaching out? How many more deals could he have written?
Right.
And how much more money could he have made? And how many more lives could he have touched? And so the power of local publicity, it kind of put me on the map during a really difficult time when my PR firm had fallen on hard times and I needed to find a way to make money during a really tough economy. And I wrote this book, Bye Bye Boring Bio, on a dare from a friend, and it basically saved my bacon at the precise time I needed to bring it home.
And I will tell you that your bio is amazing and it will be in our show notes for those who are now
Thank
curious.
you.
What is Nancy's bio?
Thank you. Well, and since we're talking about bios, a lot of times contractors and people who are in the home services business can be very humble. We started out our practice, in 19, whatever year it was. It's a family-owned business. But if you're able to say that you were voted best in your town multiple years running, and that you've had the pleasure to serve hundreds or thousands of families during the best and the worst of times, and these are the kinds of comments that people make about the extraordinary customer service you provide, when you introduce yourself online on your website or in any format, you can convey a lot of credibility and build a lot of trust by just telling the truth about what you've accomplished. How many books have you written, which may or may not be relevant for some of these service providers. But if you've been fortunate to work on some high profile projects, like one of my clients is an architect, and he's someone who was hired to create the suicide prevention barriers for the Golden Gate Bridge and the 7 pedestrian bridges on the Cornell University campus. Just by mentioning the names of the companies that he's represented through his design work, he conveys credibility that he just hasn't hung out a shingle yesterday, but he's been solving every kind of architectural challenge since he hung out his shingle 25 years ago. And that builds trust and helps people feel even more confident that you've got the juice to solve their problem.
That's amazing. You're making me think that I think I need to get my bio redone.
It's funny. I joke that just like the smoke detector in your house that you should revisit every 6 months to make sure the batteries are working.
Mhm.
Every 6 months, revisit what you're saying about your company and its accomplishments. And because a lot of these companies, they're getting new certifications and they're getting training so they can be able to service new and different kinds of equipment that's integral to the safe running of a household or a commercial building. I mean, we're always adding to our skill set, adding to our value. If we don't let our clients know that we're investing in our professional development to serve their success at the highest level, we're missing an opportunity again to build trust and have people feel even more confident. And oh, by the way, when you win something or when you've completed a new training or when you're newly certified in a new way of being or doing or having, if you can email your customers and let them know, we're really proud to say that we've just completed this powerful training that allows us to do this thing that we do. And if you or anyone you know needs that, we would love to be of service. Well, what you might find with these keep in touch campaigns that you do with your clients is that your current clients will say, oh, I've been meaning to call you because we need to have X, Y, or Z serviced. Can you come out? Or there's always a good outcome when you keep in touch with your customers.
And I'm going to say I'm the first one to say I have been so lax in that area. I've picked up several certifications over the years and have never once sent an email like that out to my clientele. In fact, last fall, I did my most recent certification in cash flow planning and have not ever really told the clients that I do that. Yeah, I had a little blurb about it on my website, but my existing clients aren't going to my website and looking that out. So I'm sure that same thing happens to our home service business owners.
Oh, for sure. And sometimes people forget to communicate with their customers because they're busy putting out fires with the current scenarios that are presenting themselves every day. And one of my clients had life hit the fan, if you will, and ignored her email list for a period of time and had a lot of shame and blame and anxiety around her failure in this regard. And I said, well, why don't we just wake up your list and give them something to talk about? And she says, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, what have you been up to these last few months while you've been silent with your clients? Have you been working on a new initiative that can change the game for your clients? Have you gained some new education that will allow you to serve at a higher level? Have you, had some life experience that's so remarkable that it's just worthy of talking about? And so we came up with this approach for her to wake up her newsletter list. And what do you know? Someone who had been a really big client got in touch with her and said, well, we could really use someone like you on our team. And it resulted in $100,000 contract.
Wow.
So, maybe people aren't looking at your website every day because the plumbing is fine. There's not a hole in the roof. The foundation feels solid and you're not planning to remodel in anything right this particular moment. But if you want to exceed expectations and be a cut above everyone else that's out there, you know, um, a quarterly keep in touch effort could stimulate a lot of clients because these people are already on your list. And I should bring up one other thing that I've experienced with a couple of the service providers that we use. We live in Washington State and the winters here can be harsh. And if your boiler or heater or air system isn't working properly, you're going to be freezing when the cold weather comes. And one of these companies has this loyalty program, become a very important customer here at Barron's Heating and Air. And when you need a well check on your system, you'll be at the first of the line to come in so we can get that squared away for you. If you're a brand new customer, it's like, oh, we can't help you because you're not in the very important bucket. Like, I want to be in the very important bucket because if my heater or boiler is not working, I'm the last person who wants to be cold. So it's an opportunity to create a membership program and a loyalty program that people will look forward to getting those notices. Yes, I want to go to the front of the line and have my XYZ serviced so that I'm not cold this winter, or that I am cool this summer. I mean, whatever the case may be.
Right. That's a really good idea. And I'm glad you shared that with us because as I talk with home service businesses all across the US, some of them really struggle with how do I put together a membership program? And that's a very simple type program right there. Is just come to the front of the line. It doesn't have to have a lot of bells and whistles. It doesn't have to have a whole, laundry list of services that we're going to do, but just come to the front of the line.
Come to the front of the line. And you know what? If your home systems are not working, if the water is spewing out of a pipe, if there's a hole in the roof, you don't want to say or hear, I can get to that in a month. You want somebody to get on it right away.
Right. Yeah.
And I have had some experience with that. So am I a member of some of those programs? Absolutely. Do I gladly pay the modest fee to have the privilege? Absolutely, because it's false economy not to have it.
Right. Yeah. And that's just one more reason why these home service businesses need to be known in their local geographical area. They're not trying to be known across the US like you are or like I am, but they're trying to be known in their local geographic area, and they need to be a little bit of a celebrity. They need to be an authority so that people, when that water spewing out of whatever, they're going to pick up the phone and they're going to call you because they've been hearing from you. They know that you're trusted. They know you're not going to just sell them something to meet a quota, but they're going to call you because they know you care.
Well,
And
and
that's
and
a
so
great
so
place to be.
so to that end, you know, every plumber, every electrician, every roofer, every heating and air conditioning guy, if they could create a little checklist of the 5 or 10 questions you should ask your contractor before inviting them into your home, and demonstrate how much they care about customers getting what they need in an ethical and appropriate manner, that can become an opt-in gift that people can download from the homepage of the website.
Mhm.
And if they opt in to get it, then you, the service provider, now have their name and their email address. So you're building your email list. So you're able to send out a newsletter every now and then and say, here's the latest trend in windows and doors in our town, or find what are the latest trends in your area, or what is something new that's unfolded that changes the game for this particular thing. But if you could get in highly ed when people give you their name and their email address, they're saying you have permission to write back to me because I'm interested in what you have to say. And some of these people are very judicious consumers. And if you write to them on a quarterly basis or even more often and say, here's the latest success story from our remodeling project, or here's the latest new development that we have put in place to serve you better, these keep in touch efforts can stimulate people on the receiving end to say, oh yeah, I've been meaning to take care of that. Let me give you a call.
Mhm.
Because there's the whole getting the current customers to be more loyal to you bucket. And then there's getting the current customers to gladly refer you to other people who could benefit. And then there's the whole blank slate of all the people that you've never touched before, that have never done business with you before, that you would love to have give you a try. But I think we should all work all 3 legs of the stool so that you can keep the current customers happy. The really happy customers will send you referrals. And then this outbound marketing that you do with podcast guesting and publicity, it can reach new people that you've never touched before. And if you work all 3 legs of the stool, hopefully you're going to be busier than a one-armed paper hanger and have lots of money coming in the bank, and a team to keep busy and profits in your pocket.
Plus, I think it will draw the right type of customer to you. It won't just be just anybody, but it'll be the somebody that values what you're saying. And that somebody says, they're speaking to me. I understand this. They're speaking my language. And when they do that, now you have a customer who will stay with you longer, and they'll do more with you than just that person who just needed the quick fix transaction and they're off to the next guy, the next lowest price bidder. You really want that
I
other
think you make a
customer.
really good point there. I think loyalty is really, I mean, there's all kinds of math and studies that have been done about how much it costs to acquire a new customer versus the value of a lifetime customer. And so if the onboarding process of, I remember when I joined the VIP club at the Barron's Air Conditioning, they said, well, Mrs. Juetten, so glad to have you with us. Let's gather some information from you so we're able to stay in touch with you on a regular basis. And tell me about the systems that are in your house, and tell me about how old they are, and tell me when the last time things were serviced. And, they were doing discovery to understand what we had so that they would be in a position to better serve us. And I was more than happy to give them the information, because this home that we have is the most important asset we have. And we want to make sure we do the right thing by it. And these kinds of customers, the people that have that philosophy, I'm going to do the right thing by my home, they're not looking for the lowest cost provider.
No.
They're looking for the most trustworthy, the most accomplished, and the most reliable provider. And if you can demonstrate those qualities in the way that you communicate in person and online and on paper and in every other way, I think it will do you well.
I think so too. Yes. You'll stand apart from a lot of your other competitors just by doing these basic things.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Nancy, what are some practical tips and suggestions that a home service business owner can use to put a toe in the water? Like I put my toe in the water when I did that multi-author book way back when in the early 2000s. What's something they could do to put their toe in the water and start building out this credibility and this authority that will help them stand apart from all their competitors?
Well, one idea that comes to mind is to do a Google search and look for the top podcasts in 2024 that cater to the needs of home service providers, and see what comes up. Because you might find, I'm going to see if I can do this right now. The top podcasts in 2024 that focus on home service providers. I'm just going to see what happens.
Okay.
The 25 best home services podcasts. They just came up just like that. And so what you want to do is you think to yourself, okay, I want to listen to a couple of these podcasts, and I want to decide or feel into what it would be like if I was speaking up on one of them. And if you feel that when you listen, you think, oh, I have value to add to that podcast, I have something to say, then you can make an approach to that host and say, I heard you talk to Joe Schmo over here about windows and doors, and my company has a unique approach to windows and doors that's not been talked about before, and I think it might add value to the conversation. Would you like to have a chat with me in service to your audience? But if you could find podcasts where you could speak up about what you like to talk about, even if it's not in your local trading area, but it's national or international in scope, when you reach out to your newsletter subscribers and say, I was lucky enough to be featured on this podcast where I shared these hot tips about air conditioning or whatever it is, they're going to go, oh my God, my local guy is a national presence. That makes me feel even better about it. So one tip is find the top podcasts that are about home services companies, narrow it down to 8 of them that you would like to be a guest on, and then make a winning approach to suggest why you have value to add to the podcast. Then you would show up like a winner to be a guest on the show and to have a great conversation, much like what we're having here today. And then when the host says, well, gee, Bob, it's been great having you on the program. I learned so much about how to do whatever it is we were talking about today. What is the next best thing our listeners can do to move in your direction? That's when you can say, thanks for asking. I have this free report, the 10 most important things to ask your contractor before you let him in the front door. If you're interested in having that, go to 10besttips.com and I'll see you on the other side. But you could be harnessing all these people from around the country, around the world, around your backyard, across the street that want to be in your universe now, and you can stay in touch with them.
And that wasn't even that hard, was it?
I
Just
don't
a
think so.
nice, simple thing, right?
I mean, like the story I told you about this book I wrote, and I was, sometimes it's publicity envy that makes you do stuff. You think, why is that author in the newspaper and not me? And you think, well, maybe it's because that author cared enough about it to find out who the reporter was who wrote about that kind of stuff and made a request. They made a request and the person said yes. So I thought, well, what the heck? Why not do that for myself? Why not do that for yourself? Why not be awarded the best in your town for whatever it is? You can go to the Chamber of Commerce and find out. Not everybody's a member of the Chamber of Commerce, but it can be a really good thing to do. And join your local Chamber of Commerce and show up once a month for a networking meeting. And when you get a chance to introduce yourself, stand up and be proud and loud and say, hi, I'm the owner of ABC Air Conditioning. And we just, and then you'll find out that the Chamber of Commerce is doing their best of 2024 recognition, and you find your way into the nominations, and all of a sudden one good thing leads to another, and you're the one that they're going to call. You just have to sort of decide, do I want to get known beyond the one-on-one? And if you do, there's a whole bonanza of opportunities that you can unlock for yourself if you just lean in that direction and have some fun with it.
You make it sound so easy, Nancy. I think of all the books I've written, and I have not done a good job of trying to get interviewed around them or anything. I write the book and then you're on to the next thing, it seems like. And so you're really making me stop and think about missed opportunities over the years with the various books that I've written.
I resonate with that remark. I appreciate that remark. I wrote a book called Bye Bye Boring Bio in 2008, and I thought it was the answer to a very serious problem that a lot of people were struggling with. And I did it in a hurry, and I wasn't really proud of it. But I thought, what the heck am I going to do? My PR firm ran on hard times, and I got to figure out something to do to pay the rent. So I wrote this book very quickly and promoted it like crazy. And all of a sudden, good things started happening for me. So then I thought, well, what could I do the year later? And a year later, I upgraded the book and added 100 pages of awesome content and templates and worksheets and examples. And all of a sudden, I was able to do a relaunch of the book in 2010 that made me feel like I was doing a better job of it. And then I rode that magic carpet for a while. And then in 2020, the pandemic came to call, and it seemed like when I read the book again, I was disappointed that it didn't address the needs that people had to speak up virtually instead of in person, because we were all sitting on our behinds in our offices, not being able to leave the house. So I took the opportunity to revisit the entire work and redo it completely so that it would serve in a much more powerful way. And this time I decided to do a Amazon bestseller campaign for it because I thought this third time's the charm. I never got around to that the previous two. I was just self-publishing and doing the best that I could. But you know what? I self-published it, but I did a bestseller campaign and I earned bestseller status in 4 categories for the preview of the book, even before the real book was in my hand. And I thought, oh my God, this is so exciting. So if you were to Google Bye Bye Boring Bio on any search engine and look for me, you don't even know how to spell my name, you're going to find tens of thousands of references to this book. And so what I'm proving to you or demonstrating to you is, like, if you give birth to a new work and you just say, okay, I checked the box, I'm done. Well, yeah, good for you. You wrote the book. But just like when you give birth to a child or welcome a new puppy into your life, it's the first 2 years of that life of that work that you have to nurture, love, train, make it a priority. And, give your book at least 2 years of promotion as a podcast guest, as someone who's the subject of great stories in your local backyard and beyond, as someone who speaks up on podcasts and broadcasts and webinars. Give it enough oomph so that it can serve as a magic carpet to take you next where you want to go. Otherwise, you just checked the box and went on to the next thing, and you didn't get the full value that you could have from it.
Wow, this has been amazing, Nancy. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because we're coming up on our time. And um, I always end my podcast with the question, what is a unique profit tip that you can share with our listeners where you've seen profits leaking out of other service businesses?
Excellent question. If you're a service provider who does offer an opt-in gift that people can download to learn something important from you, my leak is make sure that the page is functioning properly and taking people where you want them to go, and that it's working the way it's intended to. Because if you attract leads to your gift, but they never find their way into your email system for some weird technical glitch, you've put effort to lead generation that has just gone down the drain. So monitor whatever you do for lead generation so that don't just set it and forget it, but once a month, make sure all of these things are working properly and notice how many leads you're getting from these things. I'll just say one more thing about that. I always aim for my opt-in pages to convert from click to lead at 50% or better. If you've never checked how well your lead magnet is converting from click to lead, go to your dashboard and do the math and find out. Because a woman I was talking to not long ago said, oh, over 2,000 people have clicked on it. And I said, well, how many people have clicked through to actually give you their name and their email address in order to receive it? She said, oh, less than 2%.
Oh, no.
I said, less than 2%? This is a serious leak. This is a report that needs to be revamped. You need to try something new and, get 300 people to visit your page and see if you get 50% conversion on that. If you do, you're off to the races and you have a workhorse that will work really hard for you. If you've got something converting at 2%, you have not solved the right problem that will compel people to want to actually be in your ecosystem in the first place, and that's where you should put your focus.
All right. Well, Nancy, thank you for sharing a nice hidden profit tip. I'm going to pull up my Proud to be Profitable bucket. We're going to drop some money in there as we are filling in bottom line profits one more time. And that is the goal of this particular podcast is we got to find those hidden profit leaks and plug them, not just find them, but we've got to plug them. So thank you, Nancy, for joining us. It's been a joy to have you on the show today. How can our listeners find out more about you and where can they go to get a copy of your Bye Bye Boring Bio book?
I am going to suggest getknowngetpaid.com as the website that you visit to learn about everything it is that I do. And there's a pop-up on that site that will allow you to download the preview of Bye Bye Boring Bio as my gift to you. And so I'm sure Diane will put that in the show notes, and I look forward to having you join my ecosystem and to see what more I can do to support your success as a brilliant and profitable home service provider.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I'm sure that you're going to have a lot of people clicking on that because I have a sneaking suspicion we've got some boring bios out there. I see them all the time when I click on their websites. Boring bios.
I can help them with that. I can
Yes.
create a transformation from wallpaper to wow to attract clients now. It's one of my unique specialties, and I'd be honored to be of service if that would be of value.
Well, thank you again. And for everybody listening, I want to thank you for joining us again for this particular episode. I know you're busy and I know your time is limited. So thank you for sharing some of your day with us today. Remember, it's not all about that top line revenue. It's about how much you keep. It's that bottom line profit that we are working so hard to increase those profits for our listeners and for our coaching clients and our other accounting clients as well. Our goal is to make you guys more successful so that you have a better business. You get to spend more time with your families, and your team loves working for you. So I'm going to say bye-bye for now. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you again.